Hey, welcome back to True-Moto-Resto, and in this video we're going to continue on with the GSX-R 750, the Skoal Bandit, and amongst other things we're going to get this oil pan back on with the new gasket and see what else we can get done. Stay tuned. So I'm just preparing the oil pan for a new gasket, so it needs to still be kind of thoroughly cleaned out. But before I do that, I'm just basically taking this is just a plastic razor blade. I'm trying to get as much of the gasket residue off as I can, which means all of it has to come off. And any of the parts that are a little more stubborn, I'm just putting a little bit of paint remover on there just to soften the old gasket material up, and then it will typically scrape off with the plastic razor blade. Use the plastic ones as opposed to something like this. This is more effective at taking it off, but there's a higher risk of damaging the aluminum on the pan. And the surface has been cleaned. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the outside of this a bit more of a cleanup with a Scotch-Brite pad and some WD-40. Clean that up a little bit. The other thing that I did do was one of these drain plugs, this one, didn't have it on, but it's supposed to have a crush washer on it. So that's a new copper crush washer on there. It's kind of a funny color because I annealed it already. So that's going on as well. And this gasket's going on dry. And yeah, somebody asked why I'm not using the original GSX-R harness, so I don't have to deal with any issues like repinning the gauge cluster for this connector. The truth is there's two issues, or three issues really. Well, number one is that the original wiring harness was a bit of a mess. When I say a bit of a mess, it was there were melted connectors on it because obviously I think the generator had crapped the bed, and maybe that was starting to melt things. The fuse box was melted. There was a lot of damaged connectors on it. That was kind of the first reason. Second reason was I don't know if the bike would even run with that other wiring harness. Given the damage, I don't know if the CDI box is any good. I don't know if there were other issues with that wiring loom. So this way I know I've got kind of a known commodity. The bike, this engine ran with this wiring harness and that CDI box and the fuse box and all of that kind of stuff. So to me, it's just kind of the lesser of the evils. Just going with a known quantity there and making sure that the only thing I'm dealing with is potentially just kind of changing the rear connector on the old Suzuki tail light for the GSX-R to plug into that, because I'm going to use all of the turn signals from the Bandit on here as well. So aside from that, it should be fairly straightforward. I might need to put a bypass in on the kickstand switch that's part of the Bandit harness, because the GSX-R didn't have a side stand switch. So, but that shouldn't be particularly difficult to do. So yeah, it just seems to be the easier and the more reliable way to go. So that's kind of the main reasons behind it all. So these pan bolts basically get torqued to 14 Newton meters. Use the torque wrench if you're not sure. You don't want to over tighten these things. All right, new oil filter on, and this is the oil I'm using. This is Honda oil. It's just easier to buy. I guess before I get too excited about putting any oil in, I'm going to wait until obviously the oil cooler is on, because those oil banjo bolt fittings for the cooler lines have not been attached yet, so the engine oil is going to have to wait. All right, so getting the chain ready to go on. So the master link still has to go on. I got to put 2 more O-rings on here, and then the clip has to go on. And the clip, if the chain I'm joining it on the bottom, will fit this way. So it basically travels in this direction. You don't want to put it, that would be the wrong way around. If you put it this way around, then your join's got to be at the top. So again, it's traveling in that direction. So here's one tip that I learned a long time ago. With the O-ring chain, sometimes it can be a little difficult to squeeze the plate over sufficiently to expose these slots for this spring clip to go on. So in order to create enough room in there and to compress that, I've just got a nut on here, and you just gotta make sure the nut will easily fit over the peg here, because you don't want it to damage that particular peg that you're squeezing down. And I just kind of go back and forth and just squeeze using a pair of vice grips until I've got sufficient amount of that link poking through there, and then I can go ahead and attach the spring clip. Okay, so there is the spring clip. It's on there. The closed end, the head end, is traveling in that direction. Okay, because we're on the bottom, and obviously the rear wheel has not been moved back to tighten the chain yet. That will come. Yeah, fairly straightforward. So the chain is tightened up. I still have to tighten down the rear axle, and I also still need to torque this drive sprocket nut and bend that washer over. The lock washer needs to be bent over there, so I haven't done that yet. Still need to do that. Yeah, just one more task out of the way. The side stand is back on with the spring, so yep, that's all good to go. So just painting up the primary drive cover, sprocket cover. So that's been painted up to match the engine. And then this clutch slave is in better shape than the one that was in the GSX-R. And then these are just all of the fittings that have to go in once this has been left to dry for a while. All right, so I've hit a bit of a hurdle here. This is GSX-R 750 sprocket cover, and I've got the slave in there, and everything's attached on the back. And when I go to mount it, it won't meet up to the case, as it's kind of sitting the gap between my finger and the case. So for this cover on that engine with the clutch push rod that I have here, this appears to be too long to work with that case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I took a couple of measurements off here, and this actually appears to be some of these appear to be a little bit longer, so there's a little bit more clearance. So I'm going to switch this slave over to here again, and then refit this and make sure that it fits the way that I expect it to. I took some measurements. Some of them are the same, some of them are different, though I think the ones that matter are the same. So what I'm supposing is that this piston was kind of moved all the way out. So what I've done is push that piston back in and took the opportunity to clean the bore while it was there. So we're going to put it back in, and we're going to try again and see if it works. All right, so that worked. So it turns out I just have to push that piston back in there. Simple solution, but for some reason I don't know why. I just never even occurred to me. However, it's in there now. Everything is good, and the good news is too, all all the bolts. I had a full set between the two bikes. The Bandit was missing a couple, and the GSX-R was missing one or two, so all the bolts are back in there. The only thing that's not accurate now about this is the GSX-R was a 6-speed, and of course the Bandit is a 5-speed, but that's kind of neither here nor there. So yeah, it's good. It's all good. We got the lock nut has been torqued, and the lock washer has been bent over. So that's kind of one more hurdle out of the way. I think my chain slack seems to be okay. Not too bad. I'll double check that, but yeah, it's coming along slowly but surely. Yeah, so the chain guard is entirely too long, unfortunately. So that's up at Katana, and I've been searching for ages to find a GSX-R chain guard, and they're like hen's teeth. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to leave that on there, but it can stay on for now. But yeah, if you know where there's a GSX-R chain guard available, let me know in the comments below. If you spot one on eBay before I do, I'm going to need one, because yeah, I can't be doing with that. It just sticks out about 4 inches too far out of the back. Yeah, let me know. Okay, so I'm going to start back on the brakes, and so a couple things that need to be done here. So the master cylinders and the calipers need rebuilding. Obviously, it needs new brake pads as well. And one of the things I have to figure out, and maybe I'll check the manual and check with some folks online, but I'm pretty sure that you've got to split the calipers in half in order to get these pistons out. There just isn't enough room to get a removal tool in there to extract the pistons. So I think, pretty sure I'm going to have to split all these in half and then put all new seals inside. And unfortunately, the rebuild kits I got, this one's a Brake Crafters. This is the rear kit, but it doesn't come with the inner seals, I don't think, unless that's what that is. But well, do a bit of research there, get some seals, and I do have new pistons for this one. The fronts I didn't buy new pistons for, but I did buy a caliper rebuild kit, master cylinder kit, and I just took the sight glass out of this one because it was basically junk. It had all kind of gone to crap there. The outside part of the lens had kind of crazed and cracked, and yeah, she just kind of came apart. So I have to get a new sight glass. I'd like to continue to use this one because it is the angled master cylinder for the clip-on. So I'd like to keep that if I can. So I'll get a new sight glass for that. I've just mounted the master for the clutch, but it's again, this is not the original. This is the one off the Bandit. So we'll see if it works or not. The downside to this is, of course, this is for a set of straight bars and it's sitting on an angle, so that's not ideal. But yeah, we'll play around with it. We'll get it to work. If we have to buy a new master cylinder, then that's what we'll do. Here's a shot of my latest motorcycle acquisition, a Red Bull KTM. Very lightweight, but also a little flimsy. This is actually a display at the local Shell stations and whatnot around the province. They had a Red Bull promotion on, and my buddy managed to grab this one for me. I'm not sure where it's going to go yet. It takes up almost as much space as a regular motorcycle. So I got the rear caliper apart, split that in half, and I've already removed one of the pistons. And the way that I did that, hopefully the other one comes out as easily, is I pumped the pistons out as far as I could using I put the pedal back on the master cylinder and pumped it up as much as I could to lift the pistons out as far as possible. Took the pads out, of course. And so basically they were like that. That's as far as I could pump them out. And then I used these brake caliper piston pullers. So it's just like a vice grip, except it kind of moves the opposite way. So the idea is you kind of stick it in here like this, and you lock it, and then it allows you to basically move the piston kind of back and forth, and then you kind of, as you move it this way, you kind of pull it out at the same time. I've soaked this one a little bit in WD-40. I find that it helps a little bit with the lubrication on the way out. So let's see if I can get this one out as easily as the other one. I'm sure that some of them are going to fight me along the way. I don't think that one's going to fight me for sure. There, not too bad. I thought she was going to fight me. Just needed a better grip on it. So that's that one out. Alright, so I disconnected the calipers from the hoses and just took these covers off. So you can see these have been, you can tell this thing's been sitting idle for a while. There's, I think there's more cobwebs in here than anything else. But so anyway, the plan is going to be, we'll take these brake pads out, and then we'll see if we can get the calipers apart, and then we see if we can get those pistons out as easily as the other ones. I'm wondering if it's going to be a little more difficult on these. We'll see. Right, so here is the front calipers. They are apart. But I think these pistons are going to be a little more difficult to remove. I couldn't get them out as far using the master cylinder. It really wasn't working very well, so this is going to be a case of just muscling them out millimeter by millimeter, I think. So the way that I've been working these pistons out, so right now I've got 5 of the 8 out of the front calipers. See, they're all out of there. I'm still using this vice grip piston extractor. So basically, once it's gripped on the inside, the motion is really just twisting with a very slight upward pull, and you just kind of work it out a little bit at a time. It's going to twist like this much easier than it's going to pull out. You can't just grip it and pull it out, it just doesn't go. But you can work it out with these grips, and sometimes they do stick a little bit when you first try to get it moving. And eventually, once you get to the top of the seal there, it'll just come right out like that. So yeah, lots of crap on there, but I'm gonna have to see if these pistons will clean up. They were awfully expensive to buy new ones, so I'm gonna polish these up with I'll go 1500, 2000, 3000, and make sure that there's no pitting in any areas where those seals run. And if that's okay, then I'll put them back in. If not, I'll have to just bite the bullet and buy new ones. So 2 more to go. And then I think the other thing that I'm going to do is, because somebody in the past has painted these in this horrible black, I'll put some paint stripper on these, clean them all up before I put them in the ultrasonic cleaner. Alright, so I don't want you to think this is all plain sailing and a walk in the park, because it isn't. So this particular piston, I mean, initially I couldn't get it to move at all. So the way that I've been working at this is just getting it to move side to side, like oscillate it, for lack of a better word, like a millimeter one way, a millimeter the other, and just keep working it until it starts to break free from whatever's holding it. Usually it seems like some of the times the seals are having a real good grip, or maybe one of the dust seal has kind of come out and has gotten bound up in there. That's what happened with one of the other ones. So like you could tell how hard I'm working here to try to get this thing to move. And sometimes the my extractors are slipping on the inside of the piston as well, and I've got them cranked up as hard as I can, but slowly it's starting to move. I just gotta keep going at it a little bit at a time. Just keep hitting it with some WD-40 and hoping some of that'll make its way in there. But yeah, it's a bugger. Let's see if I can make this one all the way around. Starting to move a little bit better. And so one was also, other one that was quite difficult, but this is by far the worst one so far. And this is the last one. It's always the way. I mean, you just know with this kind of stuff, there's no way that you kind of get through all 8 easily. It's just not the way these things work. So I've got most of the paint off. Looked like somebody had taken most of the gold off these before they painted them black. This one still has some gold left on it, but yeah, so they're going to get repainted. Next thing I'm doing is basically just taking out all of the seals. And what I have, somebody recommended these to me, and I'm glad they did because they work really well. This is just a cheap set of plastic nylon picks from Princess Auto. I broke that end already, so you got to be careful with them. They're not super strong, but they work well for getting these seals out. You know, these guys, the old seals and dust rings. And then the other thing they work quite well for is removing any of the corrosion from the grooves. So you just kind of run take one of the flat picks and run it around the inside of the groove, and it works quite well. That way you don't damage the bore, the groove. There's no scratches or scrapes. All it's doing is removing the corrosion. So they work quite well for that. And there's a lot of crap in these, as you would imagine, as there are most old brake calipers. Have been sitting around for a long time. So yeah, they work reasonably well. Princess Auto, I'm sure Harbor Freight has them. They come in a set of 3. They're not strong, so you got to be careful. I did snap the end of this one already, but they do the job for the most part. All right, got everything cleaned out. All the seals and whatnot are out of there, and as much of the paint as I can get off is off. So we're going to fire up the Vivor ultrasonic cleaner, and then give it a bath, get that stuff all cleaned up. As I've said before, I've had this thing for, I don't know, I want to say maybe, I don't know, somewhere 5 to 10 years. I've used it at least 50 times, and I know a lot of folks think these things are offshore pieces of junk, but so far so good. I've had a lot of good success with mine, and fingers crossed that it keeps performing for me. All right, so the water's in there along with my secret sauce. If you see my videos before, you know what it is. Yes, it helps if I plug it in. They work so much better when they're plugged in. Okay. All right, so let's put this up to 60 degrees or so, and then we'll put it in for 25 minutes. It's on. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna shut this film off as soon as shut the video off as soon as it starts, because it just sounds awful. Yeah, they were pretty grimy by the looks of it. Holy smokes. Alright, so the calipers have just come out of the ultrasonic cleaner, and it looks like some more of the paint is starting to bubble off these rear calipers. So we'll give that a clean off, and I'm going to have to go and get some etching primer and some clear coat. Alright, so everything's relatively clean. And so now what is fairly evident is just kind of the surface corrosion. You can see it there, kind of the mottled gray. And the other area that I'm just going to have to make sure that I polish is there's kind of a little, I'll call it a land between this one here. So the oil seal is here for the brake piston, and there's a land, and then there's the dust seal. So the land in a lot of these has some surface corrosion on it. So if you can see that or not, some of them are not too bad. This one on the inside here is not good, but the good news is that'll polish up just fine. There's still a bit of corrosion sitting in the groove there as well. So but the process of cleaning that stuff up is pretty delicate, because you don't want to scratch. You don't want to go down in here and scratch the bore. And if you're cleaning inside these seal grooves, also you've got to be exceptionally careful that you don't gouge and scrape any of that stuff, because that will become an issue. It'll cause the seals to leak. So just you go slow. I start off with about an 800 and a little bit of WD-40, and I just polish those lands up a little bit, and yep, it'll clean up. Shouldn't be a problem. The pistons cleaned up pretty nicely. There's right in the very edge there, there's a bit of a lip, so there's a couple of things like that I'm just gonna clean that up a little bit. The insides look horrendous on some of them, but the part that matters, that rides inside the bore, they all look pretty good. So I got lucky there. So the other area that I'm paying particular attention to are these orifices that allow the brake fluid to pass from one half of the caliper to the other. And these are the ones where you have these O-rings that sit kind of right in there to seal them off. But as you can see, if you look real close, there's anytime you see that kind of that mottled gray finish, you just got to be careful that it's not rough texture, because that's basically the start of corrosion. And in a few of these, I took a plastic razor blade, one of these guys, and was able to scrape out quite a bit of corrosion from in and around the edges of this stuff. So what I don't want to have happen is, I don't want to put these things back together and then have them start leaking. And if you get any of these surfaces that are not clean, like even these mating surfaces here, I've got them smoothed off. Took a bit of 2000 and WD-40 and just made sure there was no rough bits or whatever. And it's also, if you're exceptionally careful, you can take a razor blade, and this is what I do, is I just kind of slide it just to feel, not to scrape necessarily, but just tell me where any of the potential high spots are, or rough spots, because I feel the razor blade kind of start to grab a little bit, and so that'll tell me if I need to pay any attention to any of those surfaces. And if there's anything really chunky, it'll shave it right off. But I've got to be very careful doing that, because the last thing I want to do is to damage any of the mating surfaces. I mean, even though this is not a seal here, I just still don't want to damage anything. Anywhere I've got two metal parts going together, I just want to make sure that they're smooth. And similarly inside this is really the most important, is in here, to make sure that they're smooth and clean, and I don't have any bits of corrosion that are going to stop the O-ring from doing its job. So I'm getting ready to remount the oil cooler, and I'm planning on using the Bandit oil cooler because the oil lines are routed a little bit differently to the engine than they are on the GSX-R. So I need to use that oil cooler on this GSX-R frame so that it fits the engine. However, the mounting points for the GSX-R are much further apart than they are for the Bandit. So here, I mean, I would say that's, it's significantly different. So what I've done is I've cut a piece of square stock. This is pretty thick square stock aluminum. Just kind of smooth everything off, and my idea is that I'm going to mount this up here. I'll drill holes to mount this into the stock mount on the GSX-R, and then I will set a couple of holes, probably about the distance that my fingers are apart here. Of course, I'll measure it from the Bandit oil cooler, and I'll drill and tap this much the same way as that this aluminum is drilled and tapped, and then I can screw it directly into this aluminum bar or bracket or whatever you want to call it. But there's sufficient thickness to this that it shouldn't be any problem to drill and tap that and have it hold sufficiently. And maybe I'll put a bit of blue Loctite in there just to be sure. But that's the plan. All right, so there's my my basic measurements. So mounting to the GSX-R frame, 150.5 millimeters, and then mounting for the Bandit radiator, 95.1 millimeters. And then I think just for improved looks, I'm going to take the grinder and I'm going to round these ends off. I think it'll just look a little bit better. So that'll be done after I get it all drilled and tapped. So these ones on the outside will be drilled slightly larger than the bolts that have to go through, so they'll just slide through here. These ones will be drilled and tapped to accept the bolts, the mounting bolts for the Bandit radiator. So I've got all my holes drilled in my thing now, so I'm just tapping the inner ones, which is where the radiator is supposed to screw into and attach. So I'm just using a bit of WD-40 here as a cutting oil. Usually, I mean, the aluminum is fairly easy to tap anyway, but so tighten it in and then back it off just to clear the swarf. And that has got it. Next one. Right, so there's the bracket. That should work well. The outside holes are just pass-throughs and the inside ones have been tapped. So I've checked it, it fits, so that should be good to go. Okay, so I'm cleaning the oil cooler before I do any sort of painting on it if it needs to be painted. So I've taken the cover off. And the first thing I did was just kind of spray it with this heavy-duty cleaner. This is from Bombardier Recreational Products. Stuff works really well. So I just gave it a spray down with that, and then I put in some solvent cleaners, Pine Sol, in a bucket of hot water. And so I'm basically just gonna let that soak in there. Get it nice and clean. Swash it around a bit and then rinse it off. I'm not using a pressure washer because I don't want to damage the fins. Then once I see how clean it comes, then I'll decide if it needs paint. Certainly the front grille will get painted for sure. So the other thing that I've been doing is been carefully going through the fins with a very, very fine screwdriver. And it's the front side was quite clean. It was the back side, strangely, that was quite dirty. And a lot of the fins were kind of crushed down. So basically I've gone through this area here, straightened out all of the fins, and carefully picked out all of the mud that was in there, and then put it back in the bucket a few times just to rinse it clean. And now it's getting to the point where I can actually see through all of those fins again. So now you can see that I can see the light coming through there pretty much everywhere, which is what I need. So it's getting close to being clean enough. There's just a couple more fins here that are a little bit bent on the front side that I just want to carefully reshape if I can, just a little bit. Sometimes you can't get them perfect if they've been really badly crushed, but you can open them up enough that you get airflow through there again, which is really what you need. So light coat of paint and that'll be good. You don't want to put too much paint on these things because that will start to inhibit the cooling, so just a very light coat will work. So that's going to do it for this video. We're just about out of time. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I know we got a lot started in this video, but didn't get a lot finished. But in the next video, we're going to get hopefully the brakes all back together and functioning. And we'll also hopefully get the oil cooler painted and back on the bike as well. And yeah, lots more to come on that sort of stuff. So it's kind of a slow process now, kind of tedious, a lot of small things to do. But we will get there in the end. Thanks for watching.